All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Astros series as well as the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that will be now recorded live after every single series of games during the regular season. For those of you listening or watching on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to not miss when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. You feel like you're being ignored, you're not. You're just going to be starred throughout the show, and we will try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for Frank's instant post-game reactions after every regular season game, titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 122. And this is our first 2025 regular season episode, recapping some games. We are back into the grind of going live twice a week, typically. So a lot is going on. Andrew, you are here. We are 3 games in. The Mets obviously dropped 2 out of 3 to the Houston Astros. We'll get into more of the specifics in a little bit. But I think it's easy to say that the season's done, right? I think that's it. I think it's officially time to just throw everything away and move on to the next year.
Yeah, Francisco Lindor is going to hit 0 the whole year. Jose Siri, the most exciting player in baseball. Griffin Canning probably winning Cy Young. The season's over. Can't hit. We're back, still going back to the cannot hitting with RISP, which is always great. But again, it's the first series of the year, and now it's a back-to-back yearly tradition of, the Mets notoriously have always good in the first week of the season, back-to-back years losing the first series. But I do think we'll get into the nitty-gritty, but it's also kind of interesting the fact that they are opening the season playing 2 teams they played the most in spring training. So again, obviously the Astros and the Marlins or the Nationals, those are the Cardinals are your normal 3. But of course, we play the 2 teams that we played like 15 times in spring. Get to that we've seen our guys and know what they are. So I think the Astros are a good team. Everyone's kind of falling on preying on their downfall a little bit. Yes, are they the juggernaut that they once were? No, but they're still a really good team. And you face 2 really good pitchers, and Andretti was all right. But again, you faced 2 pretty solid pitchers, and there were some bright spots. Which yes, the offense was bad, but everyone was crying about a certain other part of the team, and they kind of showed out this series. I guess a pretty good lineup with at least some good things going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there were some things to piece apart from this series. I think that there were negatives, there were positives. Obviously, this doesn't define what they are as a team. It's obviously just getting into the swing of things. I'm not here to overreact. Am I upset with the way that they played as a whole, as a team? Kinda. It kind of sucked because there was plenty of opportunities to do things. But again, 162 games have to be played. And once again, the Mets have only played 3 of them. So again, I'm not overreacting. Am I kind of pissed in the moment a little bit because I obviously want to see them succeed with how much they've put into this team? Yes. But there's a team that is a little bit rough around the edges right now, and they're just going to have to dial into it and see if they can catch fire and see what they can build. But it definitely looked like a team that was just opening up a season, and they were kind of just getting out the kinks. Maybe they were still in spring training a little bit. So I don't know. But we always say it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's kind of how it all worked with them last year. So obviously the first impression wasn't amazing, but hey, what are you going to do? move on to the next. And of course, like we've said, the season being over, I don't think it is. We still have 159 games to play, so I think that's plenty to deal with. Either way, let's actually go over these first 3 games that were in Houston to open up the 2025 season. Obviously, with baseball being back, it is opening week. Everybody is overzealous to talk about everything, but let's break everything down. On opening day, Clay Holmes got the start for the Mets. More on that in a little bit, but he was pulled from the game after 4.2 innings pitched, leading to 2 1/3 scoreless from Huascar Brazaban in relief and a scoreless outing for Danny Young in the 8th to keep them in the game all day. But the Mets offense couldn't get really much across. Juan Soto and Pete Alonso both would reach base three times safely. They'd get hits from Nimmo, Marte, Taylor, and a bloop double from Terens, but go 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. The only Mets run came across in the 9th. The Mets would make Josh Hader work, including a very impressive 12-pitch walk by Luis Angel Acuna to load the bases. Francisco Lindor would drive in the only Mets run on a sacrifice fly. Juan Soto would get fooled on a disgusting slider to end the game, and every Yankees fan in existence won their World Series as the Mets dropped Game 1 in Houston 3-1. Game 2, Tylor Megill would get the ball and would hold strong for 5+ innings pitched. Ran into some trouble in the 4th, but Megill did not Megill all over the place, allowing just 1 run and limited the damage. He ran into some trouble in the 6th, however, to no fault of his own, after a pass ball charged to Luis Terens and a tough bouncing ball to short to make it 2 on and nobody out. Reed Garrett would come in to get 3 massive outs to close the book on Megill. 1-run ball, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts on 77 pitches. AJ Minter would follow it up with a scoreless inning in his Mets debut, and Ryan Stanek would toss a scoreless eighth. As for the Mets offense, Mark Vientos would open the scoring with an RBI double, followed by an RBI single by Jesse Winker to make it 2-0 Mets in the 2nd. And in the 2nd inning, Juan Soto launched his first home run as a Met to make it 3-0. The situational hitting was still spotty down the stretch of the game, but it was still enough to get the job done. Edwin Diaz would come on in the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning to secure the Mets' first win of 2025, 3-1. Game 3, Griffin Canning would make his Mets debut and was really good. 5 2/3 innings of 2-run ball with 4 strikeouts on 87 pitches. Again, more on that later. After surrendering the lead run on a Yordan Alvarez RBI double, the Mets would hand the ball to Jose Butto, who would toss 1 2/3 innings scoreless, but load the bases in the 8th. Max Kranick would come on for his Mets debut and his first MLB appearance in multiple years. And he was thrown into the fire to face Yordan Alvarez with the bases loaded. And he'd get 2 massive-sized outs to end the inning. On the offensive side, there was not much. Juan Soto did his thing, a double in the 1st inning, and he was stranded. He would drive in the only Mets run in the 6th on an RBI groundout, featuring a fun trip around the bases by a always overzealous Jose Siri. But that was all they were able to produce for the whole game, losing the series finale 2-1. The Mets would go a combined 2 for 21 with runners in scoring position in the entire series, with the bullpen holding very strong with 9 2/3 scoreless innings across these first 3 games. Andrew, I will swing this right to you on how things looked. Obviously, we have tons of things to break down from things that went on in this series to open up the year. But one thing, point of emphasis, the situational hitting, boy, was that a nightmare. That was not good. That was easily the highlight negative of this series in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, again, and you saw the top of the lineup, Pete Alonso, again, go to guys getting on base. Obviously, Soto was on 50% of the time. It felt like obviously he draw a walk. Pete was taking good ABs at least in game one, and overall has taken some good ABs. But yeah, opening day it starts with there. You get the first two guys on in the first inning. Vientos pops out, and Nimmo, flies out to that weird little line drive that Altuve almost killed Myers in center field. So it was literally the first inning. Oh, we're back to Mets baseball, ladies and gentlemen. Two guys on, less than 1 out, and less than 2 outs, and they did not score. But again, that's just kind of the thing. It is good to see that they are getting guys on base. I mean, it wasn't in yesterday's game besides Jose Siri being the electric factor that he is, but
Yeah.
at least you're seeing them get on. And again, it's the first series of the year. The bats will get clicking. Obviously, Lindor doesn't realize the season starts until May 1st. So that bugaboo is going to continue to happen. But overall, again, it's not great, but at least it's better to see them get guys on base and strand them than just being mowed up and down 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's no chaos at all. And eventually those bats are going to get going. Again, get out of seeing, two of the, a nasty bullpen in Houston and obviously two good starters. Andrew Getty looked okay, but he's not, Hunter Brown and Framber, which are two of the better pitchers in baseball, especially Framber, getting out of that kind of trouble. So he's a ground ball pitcher. He can easily get out of it. And you saw with Vientos and those ABs getting out of it. So I think, again, if this continues into the next series, I think, again, it's still early to call the red flags. But again, getting against a team like Miami coming up, not facing the quality of pitching. But again, if you want to be a playoff team, this is the type of teams you're going to see in the playoffs and the type of pitching. It being the first 3 games of the season, guys, again, could still be in that getting out of spring training mode. So, again, I'm not going to lose my shit, especially in Nimmo, I think, left 7 guys on opening day, and Vientos, left 6.
Not like him.
So,
not like him at all.
That's not like him. And even with Vientos, again, we saw last year, every big moment, the kid stood up. And he had a bad opening day, but he had a good AB in the 9th inning, and then an 8th inning, and then a couple other decent ABs throughout the series. So, again, I'm not calling the caution bell. Again, if they were just getting mowed down, I think that would be a little more concerning. But at least you're seeing guys are taking some good ABs. Yes, you're going to have those ugly ABs from everybody in the lineup. It's just, again, it's the first series of the year. That's what's going to happen. But again, I'd rather see the traffic now. And again, if the low point is that they're getting traffic and not scoring, what are the high points going to be? If guys are consistently on and they're hitting in all the flow, I think the runs will start coming. I just think, again, it's that first series of the year. It's not great, but at least it's promising that you're seeing guys on base compared to, again, just being mowed down.
Yeah, one thing I will say about this series that I'd say from a more negative standpoint is the fact that I think a lot of the thinking seemed to be very panicked. It seemed to be very not well thought out throughout this series. Obviously, with Daniel saying, the left on base are killer. They absolutely are. And again, they need to obviously find a way to bring into these situations and able to have these quality ABs in order to keep this thing going. Of course, with the lineup a little bit more top heavy than we expected it to be for opening day. Obviously, we're missing a few bats that we kind of maybe expected to be ready for this point. They aren't. Obviously, we have a few platoons going on right now. So again, as of right now, a lot of the habits that I was seeing from common sense, I would say, was a little bit frustrating. I was seeing the Mets kind of, the Mets were drawing a lot of walks. They were getting on base a lot. Like you said, like we both said, they're getting the opportunities. But then you see a pitcher lose the strike zone on Houston. You'd see the pitcher lose the strike zone. Next guy who's up, which again, I'm all for doing the most damage possible, but swinging first pitch, man. I mean, come on. Like this stuff cannot be happening as to where if you see your pitch, you better destroy it. And obviously they were not getting the results. It wasn't happening. Yes, they were hitting the ball well, but it's like, again, if a guy cannot control the strike zone, look at a pitch. And then, of course, with nobody on the ropes, they're looking at strikes. So again, like those are the things that I'm looking at. And I'm like, why are we doing this when we know, like, from a common sense standpoint? I will get to another common sense standpoint when it comes to Clay Holmes and it comes to all of the pitching, which again was brilliant in this series. You can't say it wasn't. But again, when it comes to the hitting, I mean, Juan Soto can't do everything. You know, even though Juan Soto is a transcended talent, other people in this lineup have to hit. It's going to have to happen. Francisco Lindor, we have talked about this so many times. He has been with the Mets. This is his 5th year with the organization. He starts off slow. I don't know what to say anymore. This is kind of just on brand, and maybe that robs him of ever being an all-star as a New York Met. Personally, I don't give a shit. The only thing I care about is that trophy at the end of the day. So again, when it comes to Francisco Lindor, we know he's going to get going. It's not going to be something to panic about. Yes, he's 0 for 8 to start the season. Whatever. I mean, again, we all knew that was going to happen. And again, it's just, he just continues to start slow. And not to mention, we even got some stuff from Francisco Lindor today or yesterday. He was talking about his slow start. And he was like, I don't know. I don't really have any answers for this entire slump where I just start the year off slow. It doesn't sound like someone who's like just completely lost. It sounds like someone who's like, this just seems to be his rhythm. Like that really just seems to be it. The problem here is that he's kind of the catalyst right now, and it's kind of disrupting a lot of things for this offense. Obviously, the guy leading off, getting things going. I understand you have Juan Soto behind you, so it kind of gets hidden behind him. Pete Alonso, it was half and half in this series, I would say. Some good ABs, some really odd ABs. But one thing I will say overall, I'm already getting really, really tired of seeing Starling Marte. I already am. Okay. I'm not going to lie, because not even some of the swings, most of the swings that this guy was taking in this series, and this is just 3 games in, I understand that, but we've talked about this for so long. This guy looks lost. He just looks lost to me. And for most of spring training, he looked lost. Now, again, 3 games, it's whatever. But again, like we've said, we can't start winning until we get Jeff McNeil back, because that's obviously the well-earned. I know, guys, for those of you who don't know, Andrew's not feeling the best, so I'm trying to make him smile a little bit. But other than that, from what we saw from this series, I do want to break down some other things that we saw. But from overall with the offense, I don't think it's as complex as we're making it out to be, as to where a lot of fans are saying, oh, well, you know, this is just our curse, and this is this, and, you know, this is. I mean, again, we always have seen this team struggle to get going in April. We've always seen them do that. And I'm really just, I'm not making excuses in that way. I don't think that I'm not making excuses. What I'm saying is this is the reality. It's not great. It's not going to help them win consistently. But the problem is that, again, Juan Soto can't do everything. Juan Soto's fantastic. Juan Soto's awesome. Juan Soto is a generational talent, but he can't do everything. And that's the thing. It's like he cannot carry everything. He can't bat 9 times. I wish he could. I wish he could bat 9 times in a row. I wish he could just take BP. But again, 159 games to figure this out. I'm not going crazy here. But then if they start facing some pitchers that aren't as great, and we're going to start getting sliced up by them, and kind of just limiting the offense and pulling teeth, like I like to say, with the offense, then we're going to start to have a little bit of a concern. But there were a lot of kinks that needed to be worked out from that series. Like I've said, some of the swing decisions, just it was rough. It was not easy to watch. Let's just say that. Seeing the pitching come through against a good Astros lineup, seeing the bullpen be great, that was a positive sign. But with Miami coming up, and we'll get into Miami, even though they are 3-1 to start the year, we know that's not supposed to be a great team. So again, we'll see what they'll be able to do. Hopefully they'll get hot eventually, but definitely not the best way to start the season offensively from a lineup we expected to do a lot of damage from the gate.
Again, and again, like I said, I've tried to be positive. I mean, hell, and I think we'll probably move into it. If you're telling me this is the worst the offense looks, and everyone's crying about the pitching staff of like, oh, we're gonna have to win games 10-9, this rotation that everyone shit on, me trolling and the case as well,
Yeah.
went into a really good Houston
Not
lineup
just
and gave
you.
up eight runs in a total in a series. So, and the bullpen, which again was really good, and obviously Max Cranning, and we'll get into the pitching in a second. So again, if this is the floor, and I'm taking this as the worst they'll look, obviously they can play the Dodgers and get ash rate, but that's different. But if this is the floor of what this team is, the worst, again, the positives is, again, we'll see them, and hopefully again they're going up to Miami. I know that Miami is always a pain in the arse. Hopefully this is a team that you can beat up on. Yes, you do have to face Sandy. I think it's Senga and Sandy in game 2, which would be fun. But besides that, that's the one game you're gonna probably get chewed on. You got 2 other games to just break out and keep going. So, and again, Soto looked good, which is, again, I guess the main thing is Soto has to start off. I mean, obviously that last AB in game 1, everyone wants to talk about, but overall had a really good start to the series. Unlike most other prominent Mets superstars, a good first series and getting off on the right foot. Hopefully it keeps going again, and we'll get to that meat of that lineup, which can produce. It just didn't produce against a really good Astros pitching staff.
Yeah, again, I guess it's just the right place at the right time. I guess we're just talking about it because everything needs to come to us like fairy dust, But I think at some point they got to get into the swing of things. There were things from this series that were just it still seemed like they were in spring training for most of the offense, and we know that pitchers start. We know that pitchers start earlier, so maybe they're more into the swing of things. But there was definitely some things in this series that were not great. But I do want to talk about some things that we saw on full display that a lot of people we have been talking about ever since they were brought in. I want to talk about Clay Holmes real quick because he was the guy who started first, got the opening day nod for this team. And I think when it comes to Clay Holmes, we obviously did not know what we were going to get. We know that he had a great spring training. He looked good. He was working his ass off in the offseason. They signed him on to be a starter on a cost controllable contract. And, he faces an Astros team for the first time as a starter since 2018. And if we were to break down what we saw from Clay Holmes, I would say that it was a little bit different from what we were seeing a little bit compared to in spring training, which I think is where the adjustments will start to be made. Now, obviously, the final line, he faced 23 batters, 4 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, 7 swings and misses, 89 pitches. He was not able to get a lot ahead in the count. He was walking a lot of hitters, still graded out fairly well. It seemed like the command of the zone just was not there, and he was not able to throw strikes. The main reason as to why, it seems that the sinker usage was up, which again, we all know that his sinker is one of his main pitches. It has been since throughout his entire career. The velocity capped out around 96, 97. I mean, again, when it comes to his sinker, he was not able to throw it consistently for strikes, but he still was able to induce 10 ground balls. So that's probably the main reason as to why he was using it. What we were talking a lot about was the kick changeup and the brand new cutter. The usage was really, really low. And that was one thing as to probably, especially with the cutter, probably a main reason as to why, because he just did not want to throw it to left-handed hitters. Who knows? But I think there was a little bit of misread, I would say, because I'm going to guess like that four seam that he had. I think he threw like 1 or 2, averaging out to a 6.7 vertical approach. I mean, that's pretty much like almost impossible. So I think that was a misread. So again, when it comes to his entire performance here, I'm gonna switch it over to I'm gonna swing it over to you, Andrew. Here, I think it's really easy to overreact and say, yeah, he can't be a starting pitcher. It just can't happen. personally, to me, again, with the adjustments that most likely have to be made, this just looks like a guy who has not started since 2018. Like, that's literally what it looks like. Obviously, adjustments were made in the off season and during spring training, but it's a different stage when you get out there. So I don't know. It was a mixed bag. Some things that I liked, some things that I disliked, but I would say that this was something that didn't come to me as this is awful. Like, this is just going to be completely unpitchable. This is something that I feel like could get better. But it needs to obviously come with some adjustments. And again, we will see. Daniel saying butterflies, who knows, maybe some nerves. And I will get into that in a second. But Andrew, what were your thoughts on Clay Holmes' starting debut on opening day in front of the big lights in Houston?
Yeah, I obviously had a really good first inning, which again, that kind of everyone's jamped up that first inning and kind of lost a little bit as the start went on. So overall, he looked pretty good. If you're telling me the line, again, 4 2/3, again, lost a little control, a little shoddy defense as well doesn't help him. Obviously, we'll talk Acuna at second base, so that didn't go well. A couple balls were hit hard, but overall, again, if you're telling me, again, that's kind of what I would want out of Clay Holmes. If you're telling me he goes 5 innings, less 3 to 4 runs, the walks, obviously have to be. He didn't throw the kick change, and we only threw a few of them. I know he threw the one to Jordan, but he didn't throw. That was like the new shiny toy that everyone was talking about in spring training, and he just doesn't use it. Again, so another thing I brought up earlier, he's faced the Astros in spring training 3 times, so they've seen him throughout spring trainings. Again, this isn't the kind of the shiny toy. This is one of the team. This is the team that has seen him a lot, so they know what they're getting. And even with that, again, I thought it was a fine outing. Again, if that's kind of what he is like kind of, if he can give me 5 innings and then keep me in a game, that's kind of what he was brought into. He's not supposed to be, because he pitched opening day, who's the ace. No, if he can give me 5 innings and keep me in the game, I am okay with that. That's what he's paid, value-wise, to kind of be a middle of rotation to back end of the rotation guy. And he gave you a hell of a performance, again, against a team that has a really good lineup. Yes, he hit a guy and obviously lost control as a start going on. Again, first start officially in the big league, like I said, in a while. So, again, I thought it was a fine outing. Again, I keep saying if that's like the baseline, obviously I think you can get better with, not facing a team that's seen him a bunch. I think maybe you can have that little surprise factor and you can still out the season. But overall, I thought he pitched pretty well. Again, made a few mistakes defensive mistakes, lost his zone a little bit. But again, that's kind of what you would expect. And if you're telling me Clay Holmes, again, can keep me in the game less than 4 runs an outing, can give me at least 5 innings in today's game, that's pretty much all you can ask for, especially a guy that's being converted from the bullpen. The velocity didn't really dip as much as I thought as the start went out. Longer, I thought he would go down to kind of like that 92, 93. He still stayed around that 95, which was good to see. So, again, it's what it is. Again, it's the first start. It was, again, you look at the line, you'll take that for a first start as a bullpen reliever, a transition. So, again, I'm not going to rip my hair out, and I think it's a fine outing. I think he can build off this, get him against a team that's a worse lineup that hasn't seen him 4 times in the last month.
Yeah,
I think I think you'll see some more better results, and obviously I think he'll now be calmed down. Like you said, he maybe had those butterflies of hyping himself up back to try to make a statement, and he did make a statement, but maybe not as good as he expected.
Yeah, again, I think it was kind of a mixed bag as to where it was just getting in his head a little bit. He was just he also seemed to be rushing a lot of things too. Obviously, the pitch clock is the pitch clock, but it also just seemed like he was quick pitching a lot, trying to get ahead in the count. Like he seemed a little bit flustered, and we haven't really seen that from him because it seemed like he was just working very, very quick in spring. And you are right. He did face them for the first 2 spring outings. So, I mean, they've had the book on him for a while, I guess. So it could be possible. When it comes to his changeup, I kind of understand as to why he was using a sinker so much. He was losing control of it, but he was still getting a lot of things. The point of a sinker is to obviously get ground balls. So when he was getting those ground balls, he had 10 ground balls, a lot of them up the middle. a lot of traffic on the base paths. Plus, the hit by pitch. He had defensive miscue, of course, by Acuna that everyone went nuts about. We'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of these things that happen that, base runners really create a psyche for pitchers that goes to a different world as to, when you have runners on base, pitching from the stretch, it's a different feel as compared to the full windup. I mean, obviously it's something that is always, practice. But again, in those types of situations, pitching from the stretch is just, it's just something that they really, he's going to have to maintain, and he's going to have to maintain a little bit more from the up downs, from the overall workload, from being a starting pitcher. The main thing that really frustrated me, and I think we all know where I'm going to go with this one, base runners galore. This was his first start since 2018, which, if you do the math on that one, I don't know, it's like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, around there. So it's been a while. He had an entire career as a reliever with the Yankees. So it's been a while since he's made a start. It's been a while. Base runners all over the place. He's walking guys. You guys know where I'm going with this. Where's Jeremy Hefner? Where's Jeremy Hefner? Where is he? And I know he walked out to the mound for Tyler McGill when things got rough and everything. Maybe it's just because he knows him longer. Who knows? Maybe he just likes to talk to him more. But dude, this has happened so many times, and this is the main thing that I just can't deal with Jeremy Hefner. I just can't. I think he's a fine pitching coach. I don't think that he's the Jesus that he's made out to be, but I think that he is a good pitching coach, and a lot of guys in that clubhouse respect him. The main thing that I can't with this guy is just the overall common sense. If you see your pitcher rattled, go out there. He is facing a pretty good Houston lineup, which you said it's not what it used to be, but they have talented hitters in there. Isaac Paredes, by the way, that man's a pest. Either way, where is Jeremy Hefner? Go out and talk to him. Settle him down, please. Come on, man. This is just, it's not something that's like, oh, well, fire him now because he didn't do it. But I'm just saying it's like common sense, man. He hasn't started in forever. This is opening day. He's walking batters, defensive miscues. Obviously it's not the same thing, but we've seen this happen with Steven Matz before. We see this thing happen with Tyler McGill. We saw this stuff happen early on with David Peterson. We've seen this happen before. So again, come on, go out there, settle him in. That's it. That's all I ask for. Don't slow things down for a little bit. Obviously, there wasn't as much damage that happened. The Mets needed to hit in that game. But again, when you're seeing base hit after base hit, balls on the ground constantly where he's making good pitches, the ball's being pounded into the ground, he's able to get outs. Obviously, he's a little bit wild. Where is Hefner? Where is Jeremy Hefner? He's missing. Where? It's just a common sense moment with him that I'm like, where is he? He's nowhere to be found. That's the main thing where it's like he just has no grasp of the mental aspect. That's the only thing I can't stand with him. I don't want to go on a full-on rant, but it's it's so obvious. It's so obvious where you're like, where's the pitching coach? When you're seeing all of these base runners and the pitch count is going all the way up. I get that this rotation's not supposed to be a world beater, but come on, this is common sense here. I don't know if this is because we've talked about this before, but it's come on, man. Common sense. You don't get a fine if you go out to the mound, Jeremy. Just go out there. Settle everything down.
Well, Manfred's limited him, so you can't go over the limit. God forbid. You got 9 of them. It's almost like you got 9 innings. It's almost like you can do it once an inning, but or 7 of them, however many there are. But,
Yeah.
it's not like you can go every other inning to go talk to your pitcher. But again, that's just if we're gonna. That's where we're pointing. It's been that's the mo with Mister Jeremy Hefner is like it's when you like the most obvious point, go talk to him. Then he'll just wait for the damage, and then he goes out and talk to him. Like, where the hell were you?
Yeah.
2 batters ago when he needed it. So, and again, I'm not gonna say, oh, the pitching coach has the magic of fixing him. But hey, you give the pitcher a shot to take a breath,
Just
catch
slow the
on.
pace down. That's all I ask. Just slow the
Then
pace down. That's it.
so again, I'm not, we know how this, podcast is viewed, Hefner. Yes, is he a solid coach? But again, like I said, it's just these simple-minded stuff. Say, hey, I got to read my guy. Maybe he needs a minute. Maybe I need to go take him, a Zen real quick. Maybe help him going. But no, God forbid you help him out. You just, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna keep writing down and charting it up, and I'll figure it out. But at that point, again, this is what we've seen with Hefner. And again, it's not great, but again, it's something that we've seen consistently with him. So at the point of I'd rather you again, it's little things that we're nitpicking again, but again, it's the little things that winning teams do because the Dodgers are one of the teams. They're always doing mound visits. They're always trying to
Yeah.
give their players an advantage. That you would like the little detailed things that we're trying to get to that point. Those are just little tiny things that winning teams do.
Yeah. Again, it's just something we've seen for years that it just always seems like the timing is just very, very off with him. But again, KT Leonard saying, I've already gone on a ridiculous rant. Yeah, I have. But again, I feel like, even if Frank was here, he'd say the same thing. We know that one of our good friends, Anthony Rivera from Subway to Shea, is very vocal about Jeremy Hefner not going onto the mound at some certain points. So again, I do see it. The basis of the game, just the mental part of the game. I just feel like he lacks it sometimes, and it annoys me kind of because there are things that can be, prevented. We know that there's a lot of things that are mental about this game. And I feel like things could have just been calmed down, especially in the certain situation and the context of where he hasn't made a start since 2018. Like, give the guy a breather, slow down the pace. Just try to dial in here. Like that's it. The mind can go to different directions when they're on the mound. Again, it can go so many different directions. Something that we have seen a lot, a guy losing his head, somebody who has not even pitched for us yet, Frankie Montas. That is something that he's been known to do on the mound. So we'll see when he comes back. But again, it's like you got to dial some things in here. Guys lose the strike zone. Base runners happen. Whatever happens, happens. Am I right? Whatever happens, happens. Anyways, I do want to go to the other pitching performance as well, because it was a little bit more positive as compared to Clay Holmes, who was kind of in the middle of a lot of craziness, and that being Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning got the start in Game 3, like we said earlier, and it was a pretty impressive outing as for the type of pitcher that everybody expected him to be after they signed him. Obviously, adjustments have been made in the offseason. He's had a really good spring as well. But, I think when it comes to this rotation, we've talked about it before. They're going to have to piece things together, and they're not going to go through star power. And obviously, with the Mets bullpen being as good as it was, and even though we still have some other guys maybe coming on the way, such as Danil Nunez, it can get even stronger. I think this was a really good debut for him, again, against an Astros team that has a really good lineup. We know that Yordan Alvarez has a ridiculous history against Griffin Canning, so it was encouraging to see him for the first two, but the second time around the order, putting him back into the game and not taking him out there, that was a little bit questionable, but I digress. Anyways, as for the outing for Griffin Canning, I think this was a really good first impression. 10 swings and misses, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 earned runs, obviously giving up the lead run in the 6th inning on the RBI double by Yordan Alvarez, because that's pretty much what he does. We know he has the 2+ pitches with his slider Lots of spin on it, as we all know. But of course, the arm side break is the main reason as to why he gets all of those chases and overall soft contact with his breaking ball. As for his fastball, we know it's not graded out well, but the overall shape of it, he's been able to get by and kind of use it as a complementary piece. But again, we all know that the key for Canning is less fastballs because of how much it gets tattooed. His slider, like I said, the big swing and miss pitch, the big chasing pitch. 7 of the 10 swings and misses were on his slider. 3 of them were against his changeup. Again, those are the 2 best pitches that he has that are graded out fairly well. And once again, 52.4% of the first pitches that were thrown were for strikes against the 21 batters that he faced. So he was getting ahead of the count. One thing that has been a huge emphasis for him was, of course, his overall command of the fastball, but the overall location of pitches. So the fact that he was able to get into a good sequence was very, very impressive. But I would say that as for the expectation for Griffin Canning when he was first signed as a Met, this was a pretty good impression. Let's just say that. And even with his fastball being his lowest graded pitch, not having as much life, not getting that many swings and misses with it because it's not explosive, he was touching 96 in this game. So, I mean, again, velocity can bail you out. I don't think he's going to be hitting 96 consistently, but the fastball velocity still is up with him. So, again, with that good changeup, of course, we've talked about it before. Vertical approach angle, key to getting chases. You need to tunnel the four seam and the changeup. So again, great first outing from Griffin Canning. Didn't end great, but again, that's the type of effort we need to see from this rotation, and against a really good Astros team, like we have said. Andrew, I'll go to you on this one. Griffin Canning. I think this is our new ace here. What do you think? I think this guy is the next big thing right here.
Again, getting him out of Anaheim and out of a pitching dying factory to the new, brand new pitching factory looked really good. Again, he gives up the homer to Jeremy Pena, which is a cheap shot. Again, it's that friggin' Crawford boxes. It's a fly ball in every other ballpark. Fine. You give it up, and they obviously, keeping Jordan in the ballpark. Again, he took care of him the first time. Kept him in the ballpark at least the third time, but again, you got to score more than 1 run if you're not going to win a series. So again, you want to micromanage, fine, but again, for what the expectation for him is, there couldn't be a better debut. Again, good lineup, a team that he's faced a lot in the American League West when he was with the Angels, team that saw him a shit ton, and to have that type of performance was definitely impressive. Again, am I expecting that every start? No. But again, he's here to be like a 5 starter, and again, just keep me in the ballgame. That's all I ask with these pride reclamation projects: is keep us in the game. And when the offense starts to click, that's when that's how we're going to start to win games. Is can the starting pitching go deep enough to not and keep us in the game to not kill the bullpen by mid May? But overall, again, it was a very solid start. Again, for a team that he has seen, it was productive. Again, him hitting 96 is nice. Again, he's not going to do that every single start and every single pitch, but at least he still has that in the back pocket if need be. Again, it was a very good series pitching wise. Again, the offense we'll get into. We talked about it, but again, just for especially the general perception and the general expectations for what this rotation was. Canning, again, being probably the lowest on most people's expectation, and him having the best start of the 3 is definitely a great thing. And again, maybe get him against the worst lineup. Maybe you continue to see these results. But again, for what this team needs him to do, it was definitely very impressive. But again, I don't expect him to ever start going about 6 innings, giving up less than 2 runs. I take that every day in the week. But again, if his role to keep us in the game and go deep into games, yes. Would you not maybe like to see him face Jordan a third time? You have 2 lefties in the bullpen. You want to micromanage. That's probably, you want to call that a mistake. I mean, you're probably right. I was kind of calling why Minter wasn't in there for spec. Again, I trust Minter more than Danny Young. I don't give a shit about Danny Young, but that's just me. I don't trust Danny. I'd rather have the better lefty.
It's probably the workload with the injury. They're not trying to give him back-to-back games.
And I'm not killing that. Again, if this is a end of September playoff game and playoff implications, he's managing this different than the second and third game of the year. So again, I'm not going to kill Mendoza for micromanaging. Again,
Yeah.
the third game of the season. Down the stretch, we'll get into that conversation. But overall, again, definitely impressed. We'll see if, again, his next start will be against Toronto. Is that his next start?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So, again, a solid lineup. So, again, at
We'll
home,
see.
we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, again, Easy saying, talking about the bullpen, Mendoza not pitching young to face Alvarez and letting Canning pitch to him was the worst move of the series. I'm actually going to disagree on this. I do think that they should have taken Canning out, only just because of how. Yeah, so I'll have to disagree on this one, just because of I just think that it was just the time to cut the cord. Obviously, in those situations, the third time around the order, we knew that Jordan has a great history against Canning. The one thing about Danny Young, again, I feel like that's more of just the mindset of, oh, this is a lefty facing a lefty. Again, we've had this conversation before of like, don't bring in Shad Gilmartin because he throws left-handed to face Bryce Harper. It's not even the only reason as to why I would say that. It's because Jordan, in that sense, he's pretty much better than against lefties than righties all time. Like he really he crushes everyone. So again, it doesn't really matter if you put something in his wheelhouse. 99 times out of 100, he's going to murder it. But again, I don't think that. Yeah, Robbie Ray says hi. He's just an incredible hitter. He just really is. And I would kill to have him on my team again. But when it comes to just the overall history of him against lefties or righties, it probably was Kranick because he did get the big out there. Maybe he was the better pick. Obviously, we're playing the revisionist history. Also, the fact that we are in a situation where the team just did not show up offensively, like these entire talks about it. I think at some point you can't really blame them at that point. Of course, I don't think Danny Young would have made a difference. I don't know if Alvarez has a good history. I don't know if he has a history at all against Danny Young. But again, I think, I would have taken out Griffin Canning, but I would not have put in Danny Young just because he's left-handed to face him in that situation. Jordan Alvarez against him, he's 0 for 2 in his career. So I don't know. Maybe it was the right thing to do. But again, in those situations, it's really, really hard to just pitch to Jordan in general. So again, I'm not really sweating that out. They held him in check fairly well in this series, so it's not like he did full-on damage that he has done in the past to us. But we will see how the Mets, utilize that in the future. But maybe, just getting that final out was the goal, and maybe actually, to be honest, if it was, they probably would have just walked Jordan, but he did well against him those first two times. So I don't know. I think playing that revisionist history when the offense just did not do much, it's kind of hard to do. But listen, I understand of what they would probably do better, and there's things that they need to do better from this entire series, of course. But again, I think that the decision just for the lefty, I would not take that into full account personally. I think it probably would have went, and yes, and like I've said, he's destroyed Canning. Like he is destroyed Canning. I would have taken him out at that point, but I wouldn't have went to Danny Young in that situation. So I half agree, half disagree. So let me rephrase that for you, Easy. But anyways, before we get into going forward and everything, I do want to get into the injury report. We have a few situations here that we need to dupe out. First one up, of course, Ronnie Mauricio took batting practice in Port St. Lucie on Friday afternoon. Mets president of baseball operations David Stearns stated that once he gets into game shape, the 23-year-old is expected to play for Low A Port St. Lucie for some live competition, and then he will progress to Triple A. The Mets continue to take Mauricio's rehab at slow pace as he continues to recover from torn ACL surgery that he underwent back in December of 2023. Mets breakout reliever Dinel Nunez made his first appearance for AAA Syracuse this afternoon and touched 97.3 on his fastball. The 28-year-old right-hander was optioned down to AAA Syracuse last week by the Mets to ramp up for the regular season play. Missing the entirety of the second half of the 2024 season due to multiple forearm injuries, there still is not a timeline for his recall to the majors at the moment. The Mets have placed outfield prospect Drew Gilbert on the 7-day injured list to begin the 2025 minor league season. The 23-year-old did not appear in any spring games for the Mets in Port St. Lucie, but he was participating in baseball activities in a lighter workload. Gilbert's slow ramp-up is in relation to nursing the severe hamstring injury that he suffered last year that derailed his entire 2024 season. His return to the Syracuse lineup is still unknown and continues to be a day-to-day situation. Now I do want to move on to everybody's favorite segment, Studs and Duds. These are for games that count for quite a while, for the first time in quite a while, to open up this series. Now, there were some really good performances. There were some performances that were not so great. As for some studs, Andrew, who do you want to give your flowers to for the first stud of 2025?
I guess I'll go off the board, not really to an extent, but I'll give it to a guy who's returning to the big leagues for the first time in a long time. That's Max Krennic. I mean, I was like, literally, they're giving him the Eric Horsey treatment. Sink or swim, kid. Go face Jordan with the bases loaded. Have fun. And him getting out of that situation, getting Jordan to pop, Vientos makes a nice play, and then gets the fly out to end it to Soto, I believe. So him getting out, that for a guy that has had a lot of Mets fans cheering for him and hoping to him that he sticks in the big leagues and have a good season, to have that kind of a chaotic debut and to get out of that showed some real balls, and that was a really good first impression. Hopefully, again, we'll see how quickly he could potentially get into that inner circle that Mendy is, notoriously had. We'll see how long he gets until he's in that circle, but definitely for a first big league outing in a long time, in the situation that this is a one-run ball game, bases loaded, and again, against one of the best left-handed hitters in baseball, and get out of that jam unscathed. It's a pretty good debut.
Yeah. I mean, again, feeding him to the wolves. I mean, talk about it. That's one of the best hitters in all of baseball that he was facing with the bases loaded. Game was pretty much on the line. Obviously, the Mets were not able to, come back in that or tie the game or whatever in the top of the ninth. But those were some king-sized outs that he got right there. That was the bulk of the order right there. That was really, really impressive. I think I'm going to go directly to our last segment from earlier, Griffin Canning. I mean, a great outing for him. Obviously, with the expectation, like we have said, the slider looked great. He was able to, even though he had, I think it was like a 22 pitch first inning. I think at some point, you gotta look at this as, maybe this is a pitching lab product. Who knows down the line, but he's looked really, really sharp ever since he's put the Mets uniform on so far. So we will see how that goes along with it. And another guy I want to shout out here, Huascar Brazovan was brilliant on opening day. That was really, really good. The entire bullpen was fantastic throughout this entire series. And, we knew that this was going to be a deep part of it. It all really just had to be with the consistency and guys staying healthy in the bullpen. So, again, it was great. Edwin Diaz was sharp as well in game 2. Minter was a little bit in and out, but he was okay. A lot of these guys from the bullpen were really good.
Reed got out of a big jam.
Garrett, yeah, that was good. Yeah. So they look really, really sharp. So hopefully that does continue. And I'm hoping that we don't burn them out. Let's hope we don't do that. Someone's going to have to go 6 at some point. Hopefully it will be I don't know, tomorrow with David Peterson. You think that'll
To
happen?
go, yeah, he's going to go
100%.
7.
I to be honest, I think
going
he's going a complete
7.
game tomorrow. He's going a
At that
complete game.
point,
Anyways,
88 pitches.
with the duds, I think there's some obvious ones here. If there's anybody that you want to point out, we know that there's one guy at the top of the list that you can go with.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to do it because, again, this is what he does. But when you go 0 for 11 in the series,
Yeah.
and the only ball you hit that was relatively hard was, well, hit the sac fly, but the line out on the first AB of the season, there wasn't much productivity in those ABs. 4 strikeouts. I mean, he's not Rafael Devers, but
Yeah.
not a again the notorious Lindor Aprils seem to continue, and again, there's a lot of overall, you can say the whole offense as a unit deserves the whole duds, but again, there were, at least 2 guys that showed up in the park. So obviously, when you go hitless in a series, you're kind of the easy one to poke out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to really just agree with Lindor here because he's notoriously the dud in this series. He just did not hit well. He drove in the only run on opening day. Other than that, it really was not great. I think that there's some other guys that you can pick out of the lineup, but I just don't think that it would be fair because I think that there was some good things that some of these guys did overall on the diamond. Speaking of 2 guys that I do want to get into, Beatty and Acuna, and how this platoon is going to be worked out, because we've talked about this of what we expected and what is going to happen. We know that this was going to be a righty-lefty platoon, but we all know that the tools being broken down, we saw a lot of good and a lot of bad from Acuna in these first 3 games. We've saw some miscues, especially with the story kind of hovering over his head with how Lindor kind of said towards the end of spring training there. So again, I think when it comes to this position, we know that Jeff McNeil is going to get a majority of this playing time when he comes back, regardless of when that will be. And we're going to see them kind of flip-flop with this Beatty Acuna type of platoon or skills flip or whatever, or if there's, it's going to go lefty, righty, lefty, righty. Beatty was not noticeable that much in this series, I can just say. But with Acuna, he was noticeable for some good and some bad. There was that great 12-pitch walk, which, to be honest, if he didn't have that great 12-pitch walk against one of the best relievers in baseball, I probably would have had him in the dud category, because this was a rough start to the series for Acuna. We know that the defensive miscue that kind of derailed a lot of things for Clay Holmes driving his pitch count. We know that there was that big out in game 2 where he looked at second base to try and get the double, to maybe see that there's a double play. Obviously, Yordan is not the fleet of foot, but he should have just threw it to first base. He did steal a base in game 3. Yeah, in game 3, he was put into scoring position. So again, it's a mixed bag. We know that he's a young player. But, with the story floating around him, it was a little bit frustrating in that way of hearing, "Oh, Mr. I'm bored." But then there's also Brett Beatty, who got 2 of the starts, and he will most likely get the start tomorrow, correct?
Who are they facing? Who's the pitcher? It's not Cabrera?
I think it's not Cabrera. It is.
I know, and he'll hit game 2 against Sandy. I know that.
Yeah, he will hit. Yeah. Who we've seen.
Weathers? Who's pitching for them?
It might be. It may be. It's on the graphic. We'll pull it up, so I'll let you know. So kind of configuring this in the way, obviously, I still just don't think. I still don't think that this is right for either of them, to be honest, for the sake of playing time. But this is kind of the hand that they're being dealt. Obviously, the lefty-righty platoon is the ideal here. But utilizing these tools of Acuna with the expense of Beatty, I don't know how they kind of configure this down this stretch because they're not going to have that much time to figure it out. We don't know how long Jeff McNeil is going to be out. But I feel like for the sake of the bottom part of the lineup, which kind of looks a little weak with no Alvarez here, we know we're waiting a little bit on, Ronnie Mauricio or something to maybe pop off in that way. We'll see. And then obviously, with the center field platoon, you take what you can get. So anchoring the bottom part of the lineup. Defensively, it's a weird story. But what are your thoughts with this? I mean, is it just the classic platoon here? I feel like they're just going to play it out the best way they're going to play it out. But for overall, I still don't think it's great for either of them, even though if I'm not high on Beatty or not high on either of them, for them to not play every day and just kind of like share time. I don't know. It's not really, I'm not really a fan of it, but again, it's kind of the hand that they're dealt right now with Jeff McNeil being out for a extended period of time.
So what you're saying is you want a Donovan Walton on this roster?
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, I mean, again, if we're just, I guess to go back to the series, I found it not funny, but obviously Beatty didn't get a lot of opportunities to play second, plays at second, but I laughed the guy that is the better defender by far made the two miscues that the guy that's, just throwing at second base looked fine. That was just kind of funny. Again, offensively, you know what you're getting. Well, at least for both of them, obviously we know what Captain If against Captain Board. Gotta love it. Like Captain Grayson's pretty good too, but I like Captain If against Captain Board as hell. But yeah, again, you're gonna most likely Beatty will play against righties. It's just kind of what they were gonna do. I think they're just waiting to see one of these guys just hit, and then whoever hits the most is gonna get the majority of the playing time. Again, we've seen Acuna at least show that one good AB. Brett hit, like he had one hard line out to him, and then he had that one AB. He had like 8 pitches and he swings at a god awful changeup on 3-2. So again, that's kind of what each of them done on the offensive side in the series. So again, it is what it is. They're going to wait for Jeff McNeil. Again, you're not going to get the other little person because he's going to play in Binghamton. Obviously, Ronnie is about months away. So this is kind of what you had. And there really isn't that veteran that they have unless you want Donovan Walton or you want my king Luke Ritter. Like that's up the middle playing in Syracuse yesterday. Those are up there second base and shortstop options is Ritter and Donovan Walton. So as much as we all want one guy, we don't need to see either of them on the big league roster as much as it would, put a beautiful smile. But again, this is kind of what it is. You're waiting for McNeil to get back, and if some people's cases, you hope Ronnie Mauricio has some Wolverine type healing powers pretty soon to get that bat back in the lineup, to get that at least the power upside and not have a little person. But again, Acuna has all those tools that you can like. And again, I think both of them are going to play majority in probably every game. You're going to see both of them, even if it's Acuna pinch running or in late in for
that's what I mean.
Defense.
Yeah.
Like you're going to see both of them every day. It's just again who's playing every day. I think it's just they're waiting for one of them. And again, we knew who had the better spring. It didn't translate over. Shocker to everyone in the stands. But again, I think they're just waiting for someone to get on a little hot streak, and then whoever that first person is going to get the majority of the share of the playing time. But again, at this point, you just got to wait for that. So I think, Beatty's going to get the righties and Acuna gets the lefties, and we wait for our great golf-playing second baseman to get back, and hopefully he gets himself a platoon, what's it called? The titanium bats the Yankees are using, and maybe he can start hitting homers.
I mean, to fact check it here, all right-handers that they're going to be facing in the Marlins series. So you're going to see a lot of Beatty. So again, I feel like Beatty's going to get a lot of chances to hit to stay on the roster before Jeff McNeil comes back. And then, with Acuna, I feel like it's all really kind of being scattered in this way. And I just don't think it's the best thing for him just as a player because those types of mistakes that he did make and those types of mistakes that he did make, you can't learn if you don't play. So again, I feel like I still don't like this. I'm not saying that Acuna is the guy and he needs to play every day because he's the future. But there is things that need to be learned with him. And I feel like, you're not also just not allowing him to build on, a great AB that he had from Josh Hader or a stolen base that he got. Like the way that he's playing in the margins, I feel like it should be more visible than that. And this lefty righty platoon with two young guys, I don't like it. I'm not really a fan of it. We know that I'm not a big fan of Beatty. Whether it translates or not, I'm not gonna do an entire victory lap because all I care about is being right. For his performance or whatever. Obviously, I'm giving him his chance. I'm letting him do his thing. Because, again, there's still plenty of time for him to get going. You got to give him about like 4 more years. So we'll see, how they dupe this thing out. But I feel like, with Brett Beatty, he's getting his chance here, especially with the majority of the league being right-handed pitchers. So we'll see. I hope that there is a situation where we do see Acuna a little bit more, but then I'm also looking at this Toronto series and I'm seeing 3 right-handers as well. And then you play Miami again.
Yeah.
There's a right-hander and so they have 8 straight right-handers queued up so far from what I'm seeing, and then probably another right-hander, so 9 straight right-handers for the next 9 games. So I don't know. Again, we'll see how they configure this. But again, like Beatty's basically going to get the playing time 7 times out of 10, and I just don't think that's good for the young guy. I'm sorry, I just don't think it is. Whether I like Beatty or not, it's just not a best way to develop a young guy who we know is raw but has the tools that can help you win if he plays every day.
And this is, I guess, I don't know how concerning. I guess this is to an extent. Obviously, we have the Lindor situation that's coming up within the week. Obviously, his wife expecting another child, so there's at least another opportunity to get in the lineup there.
Yeah.
So again, we don't know when that's going to be. They'll figure that out. Off the field. But again, there will be opportunities to him play his natural position of shortstop for a couple of days. But yeah, at this point, again. I'm not saying I want Donovan Walton. Again, you know who I'd rather see. But again, in Syracuse, there really isn't that, let's just bring up the utility guy to sit on the bench. I mean, it's literally Walton or Ritter. Take your pick. Like, it's not – you don't have Jose Iglesias sitting down in Syracuse anymore. You've got, Donovan Walton, Luke Ritter, and unless you want, like, Joey – like, and Menendez doesn't even do anything. Like, that's who's down there. Like, it's not – well, it's playing the kid – either stalling the kid's development or you're calling up a guy to literally just sit on the bench, which again is that, there's value to that to let Acuna play. But you also, again, going back to the point of we've seen Acuna doesn't give a shit about AAA. So really, does that matter to him going down there and playing every day? And if he doesn't care, like there's that, perception. So like you have a lot of things here for 2 players.
But also but here's the thing, also sitting on the bench for the next 9 games that are projected. What's that also going to do? I mean, he's going to be bored too. Like, that's what I mean. It's like, it just seems counterproductive to me still. It just really does. And I don't know. That's just.
And maybe they're doing the same thing that what they're doing with center field is 2-1 and the other one gets like, you could see that too. Like, yes, you're facing 9 righties in a row, but hell, maybe they do what they do with 2 righties with Taylor and Siri. Let's say with the tougher, Acuna faces the tougher righty, let's say, and Beatty faces the 2 shitty ones, or they're going to face Bassett in Toronto on the home opener. Like I don't think Brett's going to play all 9 games. I do think Acuna, especially, we've seen this where Frank's going to yell about it on Twitter on a random Sunday when what the hell was his name last year? What was the folk hero last year? The shortstop, Zach Short was getting ABs. It's the beginning of the season. Everybody plays.
Eddie Alvarez
getting time. Yeah. So like I expect, I don't think Acuna is going to be sitting on the bench 9 straight games. I think, again, I would say 6 probably go to Beatty, or let's hope maybe it's 5 to 4. Maybe you can see that where you pick and choose. You maybe play Beatty against the shittier pitchers, play Acuna versus better pitchers, and and Acuna is going to play every day. Like I said, he's going to be in the games either for defense or pinch running. Like, he's going to not just sit on that bench. Like, he might not get ABs, which and there might be some games he doesn't get an AB. He's just coming in strictly for defense or pinch running. But it's not like he's Dan Vogelbach where he's just sitting on the bench and he's doing nothing. Like, he's going to play every single day and be on the field. It's just he's not going to probably hit every day. That's maybe, I guess, the only difference.
KT saying move Beatty to sixth, give him a little bit more confidence. His ABs haven't been horrible. I mean, they haven't been awful. I mean, again, like this is just from 3 games, so I'm not saying that this is a sample size that we need to take to our graves here. But I mean, whatever they want to try. I mean, it's whatever. We know that the bottom half of that lineup is going to be in question. With some guys that we're waiting to come back, of course. Like you said, with a big second baseman who, is the de facto of everything. But again, I think when it comes to the Mets lineup, or when it comes to how they can figure this day in and day out, the platoon, I'm curious to see how they do this, because for me, platoons are very, they're very etchy for me. Obviously, with these guys, making the league minimum that they are, it's all really about the development of them. But if we're talking about it just like the other platoon that we have here, that being Jesse Winker and Starling Marte, in the case of with left-handed pitching, we're not going to see Starling Marte by that logic for the next 8 games, which is fine. Which is fine to me, because again, like I've said, I'm sick of Starling Marte at this point, at this age, at this stage of his career. Like it's time to move on at this point. But again, there's $20 million attached to his name. So again, I'm not trying to say it's like an embarrassing for somebody's, image as a team. And we know that guys in that locker room like him, but it's like, it just seems counterproductive to me as to where, this is just kind of just keeping a team from being better. And, we all know that I think that they should have just traded Starling Marte in that Royals deal that apparently fell apart from one of our that was reported from one of our guys, Pat Ragazzo, who was on our show about a week ago. So, again, I think that platoons can be a thing, but it's like there's going to be a bump where, all right-handed pitchers are out there. We know that the Mets have seen guys stack lefties because the Mets struggled against lefties or whatever, but there's less lefties in this game. There just is. I mean, it's just known that there is. And when you have a guy like Acuna on that short side of the platoon, the playing time is going to be scattered. And I'd rather see those types of tools in the lineup to fill in the margins, because we saw from the overall offense, those tools that Jose Siri showed on displayed in the margins, it helped them out somewhat. Obviously, they need the offense to perform better than they did, but he was their only offense when they were struggling to do anything with runners in scoring position. They need that, and you're not going to get that from Brett Beatty, in my opinion. So again, we'll see.
So what you're saying,
still have not. Yeah, I know. From what I am saying,
you want Luke Ritter.
The next 3-year comparison of Marte and Canario will be interesting. We'll see if Canario passes through waivers. We still haven't heard anything yet, so I'm going to guess someone is going to complain. Yeah, I think someone's going to claim him. The same guy that was DFA'd at the same time, Jose Azocar, cleared waivers, outrighted to AAA. So that pretty much puts writing on the wall that most likely Canario's going somewhere. If he doesn't, I'd be surprised. But we will see how that ends up. We still have yet to hear an announcement unless that has been pointed out in that way of from any of our beat writers while we have been filming this episode here. And speaking of what has been going on, the Braves just lost, so now they're 0-4, and that means that their franchise is officially over. Am I right? That's it.
So
right?
So Braves, exactly. So if the Braves haven't won a game and we've won a game, are Braves fans acting like the season's over?
It might be over, man. You think that they'll start off 0-5,
and then they go win the World Series to piss us off? Probably.
Hey, it's possible. You never know.
And Mackenzie Gore's the best pitcher in baseball all of a sudden now, so that's always great.
Yeah, I saw we saw some good performances. Speaking around the league, I do want to bring something up. Obviously, it's been something that's been talked about for the last 48 hours. This whole bat situation with the Yankees and this new bat that apparently they are bringing the material to like the more barrel of the bat and shortening it or something, basically squishing it, I guess. Is that what they're doing with these new bats? Listen, I'm not going to say that this is completely illegal because apparently there is some pictures of Lindor using it during the Houston series. So I don't know if that is correct or maybe it's just Yankee fans trolling. But there is, some from that. It seems like it is legal.
And I saw another couple teams using it.
I'm not going to say, but the fact that we are seeing that put into broad daylight, as well as with the Yankees hitting a record-setting amount of home runs this week, I feel like that's the reason as to why it gets put on blast. But again, we'll see. I think, I think that eventually if it is seen as an issue, they'll probably not address it because it's Rob Manfred. But again,
no, I know what he'd do. I know exactly what he'd do.
What do you do?
He'd see that, and then he's going to bring the juice balls back. He brings the juice balls with these broken bats. There you go. You're going to have freaking, and then you have Luis Ariz hitting 35 homers. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, if Lindor was using it as well, because it seems like from this photo here, I can pop it up. It seems like from this photo that Lindor was using that bat as well. So I can pop it up for you in case anybody wants to see. I don't know if this is edited or not, but it's very well detailed. So again, this seems to be the bat that he was using. So it does look a little bit like the bats that they were using, what the Yankees were doing. So I don't know. I don't think that this is going to become a big thing. But I feel like just the overall say of the Yankees hitting as many home runs as they did. Of course, Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge, and he's one of the best power hitters in the game, one of the best of this generation, except when it's October. Exactly. But again, I think, it just got put on full on blast when the Yankees were hitting as many home runs as they were. Maybe it will come into light at some way. But I'm not really angry with it as long as the bats aren't corked. That's illegal. So we'll see, how that all plays out. I'm not really losing my shit over it. Again, like we said, in relation to the Mets losing this series in Houston, there's 159 games to go. So there's plenty of other stuff to complain about and plenty of other things to stress about going down the stretch of the season. So again, little opening day situation that I think rose to question with the Yankees dominating the way that they have. But again, Aaron Judge hitting a bunch of home runs. We've seen that happen before. So it's not like it's not possible. Also, Nestor Cortez
is batting practice.
Broken man. That's a broken man at this current moment. So we'll see. Anyways, I do want to get into what is going forward, of course, and that being the Mets series with the Marlins, a team that we just love facing all the time, coming off of 3 walk-off wins, I think, in a 4-game set. I mean, they're riding high against the Pittsburgh bullpen, of course. But again, we know that the Marlins are not expected to be a great team, even though they are technically in first place right now after 4 games that they have played. If you were to look at Fangraphs, they still are a 1.8% chance to make the playoffs. So again, they're not a great team. We know that they aren't. I believe that their top guy, like their big power bat, Jesus Sanchez, is already injured, right? He's like not playing, I think. I'm pretty sure. But either way, looking at for what we have going forward in this series, we're going into Miami to finish the second half of a 6-game road trip before the home opener against Toronto. So as for the probables in this series, game 1 will go to David Peterson, looking to repeat the campaign he had last year, where he was the second coming of Sandy Koufax and on pace to be one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He will face Cal Quantrill, who was picked up later on in the offseason and, of course, had some success with Cleveland, kind of felt the effects of the Coors Field effect and looking for a bounce back season. Game 2 goes to Kodai Senga against Sandy Alcantara, two pitchers who had a full healthy season in 2023, both looking to regain their consistency as the frontline pieces in those rotations. That will be at 6:40, as well as game 1 on SNY. Full series is on SNY, 4:40 p.m. Eastern time. Clay Holmes will get his second start as a New York Met against Connor Gillespie. And for those of you who are 2016 Mets fans, that is not the same Connor Gillespie who broke our hearts and sent us home packing in the wild card game against the Giants when they did not hit for Noah Syndergaard. Different Connor Gillespie coming off of a very shortened 2024 season last year where he pitched okay. So again, as for this series, we've talked about it before. The Marlins are not expected to be threats in this division. Obviously, coming off of a hot series against Pittsburgh, hopefully the Mets can make a better impression than a Pittsburgh team. So we will see how they will handle this series upcoming. Obviously, some things to look out for. Andrew, I'll go to you on this one. Hopefully they play a little bit better against a team that's in a little bit lower of a level than Houston. Another team, like you said earlier at the top of the show, they played a lot in spring training, and they play a lot in spring training every year.
Yeah, again, you got obviously the big game is game 2. I mean, you got the two award-winning vote getters, and obviously a Cy Young in Sandy's case, and obviously you got a couple of Rookie of the Year votes in Kodai Senga. You have the greatest pitcher of all time pitching game 1, going to bounce back, throw a gem against a very bad lineup. And then again, Clay Holmes gets at least a second landing start where, again, it's against a bad team that he should be able to build off, a productive debut, hopefully a little bit more command of his stuff. And again, it's a team and a lineup that he could go through. It's a lot of, a couple of Oriole prospects, and I literally Xavier Edwards, I think everyone likes. That's literally about it. You can name. Obviously, you got Norby and Stowers as well, but that's literally about it on that roster. This should be a team that it's going to be the team that beats up on the Marlins the most. That's probably going to win the division because, again, these are unlike the Nationals. The Nationals are at least improving and have talent. They don't have talent. The only talented player they have, again, is pitching game 2. They have a lot of just question marks of what the hell are they. So this is a get right series and then you go play against my favorite team in Canada and hopefully get to light them up like a foster child at home and get to go home and do it. So again, it's a get right series to get our season back on the right page. You got your 3 best pitchers going. So again, you have the advantage in everything except game 2. But again, Sandy's going to work a lot. Hopefully you can keep the game close and keep them getting into their bullpen and win that late in game like the Mets have done in the past last year. But overall, again, this is a get-right series. And if it isn't, I think that this Twitter and I think fans might explode. And, I think I might be the most chill one here. And that's a problem if I'm the most relaxed Met fan in the building.
Yeah. Again, this is not a great team. The Mets were 7-6 last year against the Marlins, and the Marlins are even more stripped down than they were from last year. Jesus Sanchez, like I said, he is on the injured list, so he will not be playing in this series. We know that they have some decent arms in that bullpen, so maybe you'll look out for that. I'm pretty sure their rotation is just as banged up as the Astros rotation at this current moment. Obviously Xavier Edwards, we know, can be a really big pest of a player. There are some platoon players in here, so the way that they play the matchups, that will be looked at down the stretch of these games. We know Nick Fortes has a history against us.
Drew Smith's not
killing
here,
us
though.
for no reason.
Drew
Drew
Smith's
Smith's not here.
alive. He's not
Neither
alive.
is Adam Ottavino.
So
I'm pretty sure.
We got rid of those two scars. So
yeah. So we'll see. There is definitely a lot of new names on this team, and we will see what the identity is. Is this team really the 3-1 team that they are, or are they what we really expected them to be?
Are they just the New York Rangers?
Are they just no? Nobody. No. Anyways, are they just the expected bottom feeder of the division, which we expected them this year? So we will see. As for predicting what's going to go on, guys in the chat, I asked you what you thought was going to happen. 27% of you guys are saying that the Mets are going to sweep. 59% of you are saying that the Mets are going to win this series. 9% of you are saying Marlins take 2 out of 3. 5% of you are saying that the Marlins are going to sweep. Andrew, what do you got for this upcoming series? What do you think that they're going to do? Did you get this one, the Astros one, right? I don't know. I think you said
I said 2 out of 3 in Houston. So
the Mets will win 2 out of 3, or Houston will win 2?
The
Mets will win 2 out of 3. I think I said 2 out of 3 too. So I think we were both wrong there. So are you taking the latter once again? Are you semi-optimistic? What do you think about this upcoming series?
Again, I think this is at minimum. You need to take 2 out of 3. Again, you got Sandy in that. Anytime you face Sandy, he's always eating the Mets' ass. So you have that you have to deal with. Yes, you have Senga going up against him, but it's not going to be Kodai Senga. It's going to be a shortened Kodai Senga. So most likely you're going to have a bullpen game, a little bit bigger bullpen game than a normal bullpen game. Probably Senga only throwing about 70 pitches. So you have to have that in consideration. But again, Cal Quantrill and not Matt Killer Connor Gillespie. The Mets also just, again, one of the last spring training starts, the Mets lit up Connor Gillespie for 9 runs. So knowing our logic, he's going to go 7 shutty, and we're going to get swept. But I will be positive.
Shutty.
And I will be positive that they do sweep this series because they need to. And they need to get – this is their get right. Yes, you got to face Andy Alcantara. But, again, you have 2 gimmies, and then you have to find a way to beat good pitching eventually. And that's what if you want to go and add jewelry, you got to beat good pitching. And, hey, he's going to be on your team after the deadline. So, at least you get him around and say, hey, I want to go to that team. And then, boom, there you go. So, Mets bring out the brooms in Miami.
All right. I'm also going to go with a sweep here. I think that, this Marlins team, yes, they can be pests, but I think that the Mets are going to have to make a statement somewhat, and this is the type of team you're going to have to do it against. Obviously, Sandy is going to be the biggest challenge. We have seen them do okay against him. We have seen him slice them up before. So we'll see how that looks. We know that Sandy has looked nasty so far since coming back from injury in spring training and in his first start that he had. One of the best arms in the game. You can't say he isn't. So we will see how that does look. We know that he can go the distance if you let him get on a roll. So we'll see. As for Cal Quantrill, this guy he's really not that great of an arm. We know he's a contact manager. I don't even think he even uses a fastball anymore. So again, I think at some point, he's a movement guy. He doesn't throw, complete world beater stuff. And then Connor Gillespie, like you said, they seem to hit him fairly well in spring training, which, spring training doesn't matter unless it's, Brett Beatty's stat line. But, I think from the looks of it, I think that they're going to sweep this series and they're going to go into the home opener with some smiles on their faces. I'm going to say that they're going to be positive, right? I'm always the most negative person known to man. Even though I like to say I am just realistic, but we all know we got to make a devil out of someone. And if it's going to be me, that's fine. Whatever. Anyways, some other things that I do want to touch on before we get out of here. Explosive saying that Sproat did get touched up in his start today. He did. It looked like he was having some trouble with finding the strike zone. The velocity was down a tick. It looked like, he did struggle in AAA last year. We'll see what it comes of it. He was pulled after 2 innings, so hopefully it has nothing to do with health. We know that there has been, we've talked about it before, where we're nervous about the fact that he hasn't gotten Tommy John surgery yet. So we'll see. So
Also,
it's whatever
it's
first
also
start.
Worcester and friggin' March. It's probably maybe 44 degrees at the highest. So again, he doesn't
Yeah,
have the.
yeah.
It's not, oh, I'm gonna go throw 100 real quick. Again, you'd be lucky to hit 96, especially the catcher would probably be like, let's just throw off speed stuff. I ain't got, it ain't warm enough for you to be throwing 100 right now. So, and again, it's against the best minor league team in baseball. So, not really a great first again. Not really a great first landing spot, launch day.
The
Meyer,
best minor
Roman.
league team in baseball. So
I just
scared.
I'm just stating the obvious. When you got Roman and you got friggin' Marcelo and you got other guys in that system, it's a good system, and you're playing in fucking cold. It's not a good. You're not.
Fucking cold.
Yeah, it's cold. It's not a great, for a pitcher. I wouldn't be pitching. I hated pitching in March. Hell no.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all know how your career ended very, 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 very sad. Another thing, Easy saying Nick Pivetta pitched a gem. Yeah, he did pretty well. I think he shut down the Braves today. So yeah, good for him. Again, I like Nick Pivetta, so we'll see if that consistency flows. But he's been quite a tease throughout his career, so we'll see if that amounts to anything. But that Braves lineup is good. They're a lot more healthy than compared to what they were last year. So again, Braves being 0-4. I forgot to update it here. I will do it for the sake of Mets fans.
There you go. Is the NL East over? Is it over?
I think it's a wrap.
It's over before even April 1st. That's crazy.
No one is catching the Mets. The NL East is finished. So I think that's pretty much established it that the Braves are done, right? We don't even need to play them. We got to cancel all the games that are coming up for the Mets and the Braves, and it's already been decided. The Marlins are the division champions. So pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. No sweat. But in reality, 158 games need to be played. So even though we are changing the standings there you go for Mets fans who like to see Atlanta in distress, which I think we all like to. But again, I ain't fooled by the 0-4 start of the Atlanta Braves. Okay, we know exactly who they are. You ever hear the term "don't wake a sleeping giant"? That's what I'm talking about right now with the Atlanta Braves. Okay. Anyways,
I'm not going to say what I was thinking.
Let's give some final thoughts out here, and then of course, we will send it off to Miami tomorrow, which will be the start of the second series, Game 4 of 162. This is a long season, folks. We may be 1-2, but hey, at least we got the victory before we got to 0-5. All right, we're getting improvements here overall as a team, so you can't say that we're not trying. All right, Andrew, I'll go to you. Going over to Miami, like we've said, things to improve on, things that were great. What do you think?
Yeah, I expect some first in this year. I think Nimmo gets on the board. I think Alonso gets on the board. I think Lindor at least gets a hit. I think that's good money. I'll play the parlay of at least he gets a single, and maybe even on base again, which is good. But again, when you got your 3 best pitchers going, you got the greatest left-handed pitcher overall in baseball of all time. Starting game 1, you feel good. He's got iron hips. He's got hips that don't lie. You got DP on the mound game 1, and you got the ghost game 2. And then Clay Day. You got to feel good. And again, it's a team you should beat the hell up on. So, again, hopefully this gets that, the get right series. You got the offense hitting. You're facing literal BP throwers except Sandy. So hopefully, again, you do what good teams are supposed to do, and that is destroy inferior competition. So that's what they are. And again, I wouldn't mind, David Stearns going up and maybe having dinner with Peter Bendix all 3 days, just in case, just to open a dialogue.
Just for some foreshadowing.
Yeah,
little foreshadowing. Anyways,
give him a little Chick-fil-A. Nothing wrong with that.
A little bit. It's always Chick-fil-A with you, isn't it? Anyways,
well, I mean, it's a 5-star restaurant.
I mean, they're closed on Sundays, so
the Mets don't play on Sunday. We're good. Today's Sunday.
They're closed on Sundays, and the Mets don't play, so maybe there is a little bit of a link there. Maybe.
There you go.
I don't know. I mean, they used to have the what is it called? The Chick-fil-A on the foul pole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Royals do. I think a bunch of teams still have them though. The Mets got rid of them for some reason.
The Mets got rid of them though. I mean, it was kind of an eyesore, to be honest. It was.
What, you don't like a cow humping the top of the foul pole? There's nothing wrong with that.
Was it a cow? I'm pretty sure it was a.
Yeah, it's a cow.
Like
it's the whole thing.
I thought it was lettering.
The cow was on top. It was in Kansas City. The cow was on the top of Kaufman's. I don't remember if New York, but whatever. Why are we talking about Chick-fil-A? We're a Mets podcast.
We got some time to spare. You never know. So what did you have for dinner? Anyways, let's wrap this stuff up here.
You had Chick-fil-A on a Sunday.
Course.
Good luck. You're rich.
We usually go 2 hours, but again, we're just kind of getting into the swing of things because we're going to be streaming twice a week now with, episodes after every single series. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel and turn on post notifications to not miss when we go live. Also, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features our third co-host who's not here today, Frank, his post-game reactions after every regular season game, titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. Follow all of us individually. The links are in the description. Guys, tough first series, but hopefully they bounce back in Miami. Plenty of season to go. Of course, let's go Mets, and we will see you guys next time.